everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Purpose and Profit Sisterhood. Today, I have a special treat. We have not one, but two sisters here to talk to you about finding and reclaiming your joy, which is a very important journey to be on. So welcome. I'm glad you're here, Alison and Sarah.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. So we're going to find out a little bit about you. As always, I will tell you the official word. Then we're going to find out the juicy behind the scene tidbits, why they do the work they do. And then we're going to talk about the journey to owning your journey and reclaiming your joy. So really figuring out how those two correlate and how you can create more joy in your life, which I think is a worthwhile conversation. So first I'll tell you about Alison. Alison is in an increasingly impersonal world, Alison French is passionate about helping, whoops, I'm going to move it over here so I can see. There we go. About helping organizations and individuals make the right connections to create harmony and success. As managing director of Alto Solutions, LLC, she employs brain science in her approach to organizational change, communications, and leadership. An experienced facilitator, trainer, and coach, Alison has helped clients within the government, education, nonprofit, and private sectors for more than 20 years. We don't look old enough. Facilitating strategic retreats and skills training workshops, as well as in-depth change, leadership, and team assessments and strategic communication campaigns. All right, that sounds like a lot of heavy-duty background. Sarah Guthrie. Sarah C.B. Guthrie's paintings have been part of solo and group shows in museums, galleries, and businesses in Seattle, Virginia, Maryland, North Carolina, and Washington, D.C., including at the prestigious Bainbridge Island Museum of Art and the Phillips Collection. Her works are held in private collections in Seattle, New York, London, Washington, D.C., California, and around the world. With her parents, she immigrated to the States from England when she was a toddler. She holds an MFA in visual arts at the Vermont College of Fine Arts, an MA from the George Washington University, and a BA from Davidson College. Wow, you got around in your schooling.
She is married. I sent you the long version of my bio. My apologies.
She is married to a retired U.S. Marine, Tom, and they live in Seattle with our beloved senior rescue golden retriever, Thompson. All right, so that's the official word. Now we want to know the unofficial word about you. So tell us something about you people would never guess, and maybe even your friends don't know. All right, Alison, you go first.
God, I don't know, but maybe my friends don't know, because most of my friends would know. But I will put it out there to the rest of the world that I am an avid a cappella singer.
Oh, okay.
I started when I was in college, and I have founded 3 different singing groups in the last 20 plus years,
Awesome.
all in the Washington, D.C. area. One thing people might not know, though, is that we got to perform, one of the groups, actually my very first group that I was part of, got to perform at then Vice President Al Gore's Christmas party.
Oh, cool. That's very cool.
Oh, cool.
That's great. It looks like Sarah didn't even know that. Okay, Sarah, how about you? Sarah, what's something people wouldn't guess about you?
I refuse to choose a favorite color. I'm an artist. I work in bright, vibrant colors. I love all the colors. And a friend of mine put it best. She said that her favorite color was rainbow. And I'm like, I'm borrowing that. And then I was thinking of you when I said that. So
that's great. I love it. Well, and you know, that is for an artist, it's an interesting stand to take. And I totally get it, because I love all of those colors behind you and that how they all go together. So that's awesome. So how did you two meet, and how did you come together to do this work?
We met at work. Prior to becoming a full-time artist, I had a career in marketing communications. I worked in higher education, and that's where I met Alison.
Oh, okay. So how long have you two known each other?
Oh gosh, it's been a while. I gauge it by you were at my wedding, and that was 20 years ago. So
yep.
Wow. It's got to be a little bit before more than 20 years.
20 plus.
Okay.
20 plus years.
Long time. Okay, so tell me a little bit about why both of you are so passionate about the work that you're doing now. How did you come to this, but also why? What's your purpose behind this?
Sarah, why don't you start, because I think that's sort of how our journeys connect.
Sure. So I been I knew since I was a little kid that I wanted to be an artist. Like it just kind of clicked for me in a way. I knew it was something special that I could do. But the career path for an artist, particularly as a woman, is not clear. And particularly, I'm a Gen Xer, coming up as a Gen Xer, like super duper not clear. There was no internet back then, couldn't do things like this. And so the only way to become an artist was to get in galleries and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of knew early on I would need to have another career. And so and I loved writing and editing, and I still write weekly. And so I was building a career in higher education. Believed in education, the difference it can make in your life, as you could tell from my litter of degrees. And it was through that work that it connected with Alison. But we're talking now about my why. So what happened was, as I was going through this career, I kind of got to a point where I had done a lot of really, really good work, but my energy and my joy wasn't in there, wasn't in the work in the same way. And at that same time, I was also working part-time as an artist. I was starting to have a lot of success. And when I say part-time, I mean, I was working 2 full-time jobs. And so, one full-time job was the day job, the job, and then the other full-time job was the artist job. And it got to a point where my husband and I were like, what are we doing here? He's like, I miss seeing you. I was like, I miss seeing you too. And I just decided it was time. Like I was just ready. And I had developed a consistent point of view in my art. That was one of my big goals for the 20 or so years I took to develop my work. I sort of knew what my work was looking like and what I wanted it to be about, which was about joy.
Awesome. Okay. So you chose your artistic direction, and that became something that informed the other components of what you're working on as well. All right.
Right.
How about for you, Alison?
Well, I'm going to work backwards a little bit and say that the joy piece is what brought Sarah and myself even closer together. Like we mentioned, we've known each other for 20 plus years. My journey was that I was in the nonprofit world. I was in higher education where we met. I went into consulting after I got my MBA. I've got a couple of those degrees hanging up too. And I enjoy doing the work, but I needed to find balance in my life. I'm a Libra. I'm all about balance. And it was really important to me once I started having a family. I had my first child in 2011, and I decided to leave the consulting world for a little bit, went into another job that I thought would be better, ended up getting laid off. And my why was still very clear to me, that I needed to have balance in my life, but that I also wanted to forge connection with other people. That's something that if anybody who knows me knows that I'm a connector. That's probably how they would describe me. And not only connecting people, but connecting ideas. Sort of getting laid off was sort of my kick off the ledge to do my own thing. But I have a big whiteboard up in my office that says, remember your why. And my why is having the balance I need for myself and my family, but also doing the work I love, which is to connect people and ideas. And that's what brought Sarah and I together in this joy work, because a lot of the work I had been doing, I do leadership development and training. I help build strong teams. I help people manage through the changes that are going on in their organizations. But I do it all with sort of this sense of empathy and kindness. And when I started looking at what Sarah was doing with joy, I said, oh yeah, that's the missing piece, joy. And how do we bring joy to all of these organizations that are maybe going through some very difficult times of change? And so between Sarah's art and the work I was doing in leadership, it just all of a sudden clicked together. And that sort of became our collective why, is just sort of growing joy kind of in any sort of environment. And whether it's through the art that Sarah produces, whether it's through the workshops that we do, whether it's through my consulting work, that's kind of our shared mission.
I love that, the shared mission. It's not necessarily for many people an intuitive leap to go from corporate team development to art as an expression, and that those two fit together. So how do you define joy?
So for me, joy is a spark that we all hold inside ourselves, and it can be activated, it can be lit by things that we do or ways in which we connect with the world or observe things or connect with our families and communities. And
Mhm.
it what is beautiful about joy, what I've come to learn about it over the 7 or so years I've been doing this reading and painting and writing about joy, is that you can feel joy even when times are dark and
Mm.
even when things are hard. Like, think about if you've gone to a memorial service and someone shares this like really meaningful anecdote and everyone kind of laughs in that moment. That's an example of the kind of way in which you can feel joy even at the same time that you're feeling great sorrow or grief or anger. And that's been very powerful for me as an artist. And part of what I struggled with before talking with Alison was like, how do I take this knowledge that I've grown and how do I help more people
Mm.
know this?
Right.
And Alison called me one day and said, hey, I have this idea. And I was like, this is the phone call I've been waiting for. So
I
it's
like that
great.
serendipity when that happens. Okay,
Indeed.
so joy is a spark and it can be lit. What's the difference between joy and happiness?
So joy to me is like I said, it is in us at all times. And there's some science, I haven't done the science, but there's some science to back that up. Whereas happiness is a little more in response to your environment, and it's more of a fleeting feeling to me. Um, and you cannot, joy is the rare emotion that can hang out with these other darker, harder emotions, like I said, like anger, grief, guilt, sadness, all those kind of things. And happiness is contrary to those things.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And so how did you see joy as the missing piece in corporate environments, Alison? What was the trigger there? Because joy is not a very typical word that comes up in board
Right.
and you know
Yeah,
team
I
meetings.
think sparked off of some of the work I was doing with leading with kindness. Especially during the pandemic, that was something that was very much needed. And some of the other workshops I was doing with leaders actually stemmed from the work of Mr. Rogers for Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and how much kindness and intentionality and personal focus he brought into what he did. And it just sort of occurred to me that, we have all these down times, and especially during the pandemic, there were a lot of down times, but then there were these pieces too that I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was bringing me, but I was feeling this emotion of sorts that was very much that spark that Sarah talked about. And Sarah really helped me kind of name it and figure out what it was. And I could see that in corporate environments too, where people who had been used to being together all the time were now separated, but they were finding joy in being with their families more. They were finding joy in seeing their colleagues on screen as real people with their pets and with, their artwork in back of them or whatever it might be. So there were some things that, and I don't think people were able to really put their finger on it at the time, but what we're trying to do also is help people in these workshops that we're doing to figure out what those joy junctures are in their life, where there might be something maybe even negative happening, but where they are able to kind of find those pieces of joy, whether it's seeing their colleague's cat, walk across the keyboard in the Zoom, whether it's, having a juncture in your career that feels bad, like when I was downsized, but I was able to figure out something that really put me on a very positive trajectory, and there's joy in doing that. So that's really what I think is that missing piece.
Well, while we're on that topic, and I love the phrase joy junctures, I think that's great.
Mhm.
Um, Sarah, you mentioned that it's a spark that can be lit. How does one light one's own joy, or can we?
That's a great question. And that's actually part of the workshop that we do. Um, what I do is like when I get excited about
Yeah,
things, all the ideas start firing at once.
yeah.
So I create a joy practice, and this is what I write about every week, and this is part of the workshop that we have. And in a joy practice, what you're doing is you're doing some you're doing some kind of activity with the intent of sparking joy. So for me, one of the simplest things I do, that's one of my favorite ways to spark joy, is I just take the dog for a walk. Like he's just so happy. He's a golden retriever. He's 9.5 years old. He can be a hot mess sometimes, but mostly he's like just this lovely, sweet guy. And we walk around the neighborhood and just watching how he gets excited about things or seeing my neighbor's gardens. Those are things, and the act of walking itself helps metabolize some of the difficult things in the day and helps really regenerate and rejuvenate. So that's one of my things. And so one of the things I do is every week I write about having a joy practice, and I give suggestions for here's what to try out this week to create more joy for yourself.
Cool. I like that, the to have a joy practice. And that reminds me of a quote that one of my coaches often says, is that we have to practice mastery in order to master our practice. So it's a practice to
That's right.
practice joy and have a
And
joy
that's akin to what it is to be an artist, right? Like we talk about the artist practice, we talk about medical practice. There's these things that you do repeatedly and with intention to go deeper with it and to get better at it.
Awesome. So you mentioned the workshop, so tell us a little bit about that. But then I want to come back to a question or a comment you made earlier about balance, Alison. So tell us about your workshop. What is it, and how do people find out about it?
Well, so the workshop is called Own Your Journey, Reclaim Your Joy, and there's a couple of parts to it. We actually did a part one with a group not too long ago, where we just kind of walked them through portions of their lives where they might have had some down moments and help them find the joy junctures. So that's kind of part one of the workshop. Part two is creating a joy practice. And so we walk them through a number of the joy practices that Sarah talks about, and we help them to create their own joy practices. So that's kind of the framework of the workshop. And basically, we offer it in a number of different ways. So we can do it virtually, we can do it in person. It can be a half day kind of a thing. It can be an hour. It really can take many different forms. Right now, we're offering a public version of it on July 11th. So we can give you that information to share with folks if they're interested in joining. But you know, we do this for teams as well. So not just individuals, but organizations that are looking to grow their resilience, grow their purpose, teams that are dealing with changes in their organizations and want to become stronger by experiencing joy together. So there's a lot of different ways we can deploy it, but most immediately is we have this public one. It's virtual, it's 2 hours from noon to 2 Eastern on July 11th that we would invite all of your listeners to join us for.
Okay, noon to 2 Eastern on July 11th. And where would they go to sign up?
They would go to my, oh, go ahead, Alison.
No, go, it's your link.
They would go to my website, which is Artist GU3, and that's my last name's Guthrie. And whenever people ask, how do you spell that? Is it Gutherie? Is it Guthrie? We're like, no, it's Guthrie, like Guthrie, the number 3. So it's Artist, ARTIST, the letter G, the letter U, and the number 3.com/joy-workshops.
-workshop. Okay. All right.
I think it's workshops, but if they go to Artist GU3, they'll see a link in that in the heading.
Perfect. I'll put that in there. And so that's sorry, virtual. You're in Seattle. Sarah, where are you, Alison?
I'm in the Washington, D.C. area.
Okay, so opposite ends of the country.
Yes.
So you do all your work together online, then I'm gathering.
Most of it,
Sometimes
although
we're in the same location.
Yep.
We both travel a little bit.
Okay. And so you mentioned balance earlier, that it was one of the things that you were seeking and most wanted to achieve. And part of that was that you wanted to create more joy, more happiness, more from having balance. What does balance mean to you?
Well, it means to me that I'm able to do the work that I really love, but that I'm also able to spend the time with my family and do the things that I want to do outside of my work. I absolutely love my work, but like I mentioned earlier, I like to sing. I like to go to concerts. I like to go to theater. So I want to make sure that I have time in my life to do those things because they also bring me a lot of joy, as does my family. And I think it's really important, especially for those of us who are women, who are going out on our own, who do have family, or even if you don't, if your family is your dog, if your family is just you, making sure that you have that time to do the things that you love and be with the people that you love outside of the work. And I think we can get very caught up in the work. And it's wonderful if you love your work. I mean, I know that, Sarah knows that, but you also need that time to do the other things that
Yeah.
bring you joy, the other things that you love. And I really do. I kind of weigh, if someone asks me to do a project, I kind of weigh it against that sort of litmus test of will this be balance for me and my family, and will it spark joy for me? And if the answer is yes to both, then it's a no-brainer.
Right. So it's the reason I was asking is because a lot of times I think people think that balance is an equal split between work and home. And for some people
Mhm.
at some stages it may be, but for other people, balance is like, for me, I don't have kids, I don't have a partner, I don't have a dog, I don't have so lots of work, but my work is my joy and my passion, and then fun and whatever that may be for me with
Mhm.
mostly friends and family and connections there. But my version of balance looks a lot different than yours does because you
Yes.
have kids and you have family and so forth and so on, right? So balance changes from age and
Yeah.
stage and where we're at in life. But I
Yeah,
love
it doesn't
the
mean
definition of,
equal. I agree with you. It doesn't mean equal. It means that it has to feel good for you. And, it can be, it can take a number of different forms. And I'll tell you, I used to work at Deloitte, and I used to get requests at 9 o'clock at night to respond to a partner, by 9 the next morning. And to me, that was not good balance
yeah,
because somebody was asking me to do something, and I had to give up family time to do that. Now, if you ask me today, do I work at 9 o'clock at night? I absolutely do. But
yeah,
that's a choice. That's a
yeah,
choice that I've made, that I might go out at 2 o'clock in the afternoon to go see, my kids' piano recital. I don't know why I said that because neither of my kids play piano. My kids' flute recital, flute,
to do
flute
something.
and clarinet. But the point is, I may go do something in the middle of the day with my family. I may go get a haircut. I might do something like that for myself. And then I may come back and work later at night because I have a project that I'm working on that I'm enjoying,
Yeah.
but it's a different feel. It's because I'm choosing to do it. And
Yes.
that's what I mean by balance.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the definition of whatever is the right balance for you between the components of your life, whatever that might be,
Right.
and that makes you feel good, or that you feel good and you feel happy,
Yeah.
and that there sparks joy, like you said. So what are some of the things that most block our joy or get in the way of us feeling joyful?
What's interesting is, I talked about these emotions that joy can cohabit with, right? Like anger, grief, sadness. So it's like, well, and those are the opposite of happiness, but they're not the opposite of joy. They can live together with joy. The opposite of joy is actually nihilism.
Mm,
And so it's that sense of there's nothing out there. There's no meaning, there's no purpose, there's no hope. And that is what, for me, I think we're in a time where we all need to restore. We need to refresh. There are so many challenges in this modern world, particularly in the last few years. And joy to me is key to doing that.
mm.
I don't know if I answered your question, so
Oh, yeah.
I
So,
didn't.
and kind of along with that, why does joy matter?
Joy matters because it is our right as humans to feel joy. We all have this in us, and the more that we access joy, the better this world is. And I have put this to the test. There's been some really difficult stuff in my personal life and my family life in the last few years. And every time when I've kind of hit the wall, I've kind of said to myself, well, look, you're supposed to be the artist who brings you joy. What are you doing about it, Sarah? And I would say, okay, what can I do right now? What can I focus on? What can I look at? What can I take some respite with that will bring me joy, that will rejuvenate that?
Right.
And so that's when I talk about a practice, like it's not that it's going to get rid of problems or hard things aren't going to happen. They are, but it's going to help find a way through it that's gentle.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you added because it's gentle. Joy is not necessarily raucous. That's often excitement or passion or other things that we might think of as joy. Alison, what do you think? Why does joy matter?
Gosh, I feel like Sarah just said it all. I mean, I've also been through a lot this year. Sarah knows about some of it, and it's been important to me to be able to reframe a little bit and to be able to think about the things that still do bring me joy so that I'm not feeling hopeless. I think that's a real big important part of it, that you can very easily fall into that hopelessness. And if you can find those joy junctures, those pieces of those sparks that are coming out of maybe the things that aren't so good, I think you can hold on to that piece of yourself before you fall into hopelessness. And I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in Seattle, obviously have a lot of friends who work in tech. And one of the big things in tech, of course, is making things go live. So what it takes for a team to make a product, a new software platform or something like that to go live is an extraordinary commitment. It's just hours on hours and time away from families and things like that. And so as a group, like how do they come back together after that kind of outlay? How do you take care of yourself and take care of your team after you've done that kind of work? Those are the kind of things that I've been thinking a lot about.
Which is a very important component of that self-care and related to joy, but people wouldn't necessarily put those together. You know,
Right.
is there joy in this journey? Are we actually having fun along the way? And is there an enjoyment of this? So is joy in this process as well? Okay, I think it's a very valuable conversation. Just for a couple of the analytical listeners, what's the benefit to my work or my business place of doing a joy workshop or having a joy practice? How is that going to help me climb the ladder?
Well, I'm not sure it's going to help you climb the ladder per se, but what I think it's going to do is to help make the lattice more accessible, to be able to relate better to one another. If you are a team and you've got a lot of change going on in the organization, like I mentioned earlier, being able to come together and explore joy as a team is a really important way to kind of open up and build that team a little more strongly so you have a stronger force going through the change together and being able to rely on one another and know one another better as people. I think you can also really grow your resilience, being able to find those joy junctures. I think that's really important. And that could help you climb the ladder as well. I think people who are more resilient are more likely to move up in their careers. I mean, the point of it isn't so that you'll climb the ladder. The point of it is that so you'll be a more fulfilled person and a more fulfilled worker in your organization, a more fulfilled leader in your organization, and therefore you'll be able to inspire the people that you lead.
Yeah, that makes.
And I mean, who do you want to work for?
Yeah.
Right. Like, do you want to work for the one who comes in angry and yelling at everybody and holding meetings late at night? Or do you want to work for the leader who inspires you and who brings joy to the workplace? You know, there's a lot in the healthcare space. Obviously, we have a lot of friends in healthcare out here in Seattle too, as well as tech. There's a lot of burnout, and joy is one of the antidotes to burnout. And so it can help with your team and your organization by, if you put practices in place that will help people connect with their joy, they're going to be more likely to stay. And, you know, the turnover cost for employees is very, very high. And so if you can reduce those turnover costs, that's another benefit in which having a joy practice as an organization can help.
All right.
Yep.
And that organizations can have that as well. And I think really it just unites us on our humanity, because
Absolutely.
that's even if the experiences of it are unique, the experience of it in our humanness is something that is common between us. So that's always a good thing to find, is those things that unite us versus divide us. So what's one last comment you'd like to leave people with?
one of the things I love to tell people is to look for joy. It's there, I promise.
Okay, awesome. Anything you want to add, Alison?
I mean, I think that sums it up so well. We also talk a lot about, and you alluded to it earlier, what you focus on grows. So if you
Mhm.
focus on joy, your joy is going to grow.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you so much for being here, ladies. Thank you for being purveyors of joy in the world and for doing that kind of work, because I know that, and we all know as coaches, etc., sometimes it can be a little challenging to sell something intangible like joy or confidence
Mhm.
or whatever. And it is so beneficial to be able to do that. So congratulations on that, and doing that important work. Really appreciate it. So again, ladies and gentlemen, go to artist GU. G is in Guthrie, and U is in the second letter of Guthrie. Number 3. .com/joy-workshop to get more information about how to connect with these lovely women. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you both, and I appreciate the work you're doing. And ladies, don't live in a vacuum. Reach out, connect with other human beings. It's one of the things that feeds our soul. Join the Purpose and Profit Sisterhood, now called the Maturepreneur World, or the Maturepreneur Network Facebook group. We are a community of people who want to support and lift one another up. So come and join us to experience more joy and connection. Thank you for being here, ladies. Have a wonderful week, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you so much.